but from a very different perspective. When we speak about climate change, we often talk about a lot of the gloom and doom associated with it. For instance, just this summer, we witnessed how Pakistan has had the hottest season in decades. We've seen forest fires before this. Flooding is expected. So extreme weather, but it's not just Pakistan, it's the global south. But combating climate change and what skills or priorities governments need to have in order to facilitate young people, not just to change the world, but also change the future. We have a really fantastic panel. I'll introduce everyone one by one, all representing the global south. There is naturally a heavy presence from Pakistan, but we have fantastic speakers from Kenya and Nepal, for instance, and Bangladesh, and all have a tremendous amount of experience in Tabadlab as a team member as well. My name is Amber Rahim Shamsi. Currently, I'm the director at the Center for Excellence in Journalism at the IB University in Karachi, and we actually there's also a lot of interest in terms of the media in not just teaching climate change, but also how journalists can also propagate the ideas that are being discussed in webinars like this. So quick introductions. Her educational background is in visual communication and fashion design, 15 years of work teaching photography as well, and as training craft artisans in the development sector. We have with us Ahmed Shabar, who's also from Pakistan. And he's an engineer, a scientist, environmentalist. His passion is to find sustainable solutions for issues. And he founded Garbage Can, which is this amazing initiative which is a sustainable waste management company. And who doesn't need that, right? As an online platform for environmental awareness, which is called the Environmental, and he's a part of the Pakistan Maholiyati Tahaffuz movement, which is protecting the environment, which is focused on climate justice. We also have with us Nazish Sheikha, so also from Pakistan. Nazish is, so a key sector here is obviously business, and she heads a Center for Excellence in Responsible Business at the Pakistan Business Council. So we're talking about skills development and education and youth and job opportunities. This is that kind of network as well. We have, and I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name. You're feel free to take revenge and mispronounce my name if you want. I hate it when people call me Amber. So Kidus Afjo from Kenya. Kidus is a co-founder and CEO of Cubic, which is an environmental tech company which turns plastic waste into low-carbon buildings. He's helped UNICEF build schools from trash in Cote d'Ivoire, and I'm dying to learn about the amazing work what an amazing sort of CV as well. He's the academic head of its graduate program of international cooperation and development. He was a coordinator of the draft committee of the national STI policy in 2019, as a consulting expert at the National Planning Commission to prepare the green economy framework for Nepal. So, thank you so much for joining us, and really looking forward to hearing how, for instance, people in Pakistan can learn from your experience, and the global South generally as well. We has had a long career in both international and domestic the arena for over 19 years. He had worked as the commercial section of the Austrian embassy in Dhaka for 9 years prior to that as well. So we have this great sort of experience, not just in terms of the commercial sort of sector as well, but also diplomacy, which is also key because we're talking about cooperation and learning. So I'm going to start, just laid out a little sort of the ground what we're talking about. I would really appreciate it if Ms. Nazish could begin. I know that you have to leave.
Thank you, Amber, for your introductions. As I said, I'd like to say that I'm very happy to be here to talk about my favorite topic, which is education for sustainable development. I say it's my favorite topic because I've been working and I've been teaching in this area for quite some time now, and I love the way the youth that I've interacted with, and even the younger students that I've interacted with, is that they always bring out a really positive side of things, and side of things that we have not thought about. So this is so happy to be here. I'm just going to go straight into my presentation, as we do have a lot to cover, and we have other exciting speakers after me as well. So if some will my if somebody could share my presentation, or so as Amber is introduced, I'm from the Center of Excellence in Responsible Business at the Pakistan Business Council, and this was established by the Pakistan Business Council, which is a not-for-profit and a sort of business association which works to build basically build capacity and move forward advise policy that would lead to the betterment of the economy. And in that, they set up the Center of Excellence in Responsible Business to help other businesses and also the businesses in the council to understand, what is actually responsible business and how it's linked to sustainable value creation. The next slide, please. So when the center was set up, we've been basically set up to build the capacity and capability of businesses in Pakistan in relation to responsible business, which basically talks about environmental stewardship, climate action, gender equality, livelihood development. So all of these aspects are related to sustainable value creation, and a business which is responsible to its stakeholders should actually be practicing all of that. So as when we talk about building capacity and capabilities, one is obviously getting the knowledge in and talking about what are the global teachings on this. But the second part is obviously how identifying solutions or examples that people can relate to in Pakistan. So what we do when we're as a business entity, what we do is we collaborate with other businesses and showcase their best practices on particular areas. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about an impact and what knowledge and what skills do people need to move forward in a greener economy, everyone or should realize that we have a double impact. So firstly, on one side, any business or any person will have an impact on society, the environment, on the economy, on behavior, on resource use, and obviously the future as well. If you look at, the definition for sustainable development. And so the 6 steps will also have an impact on that person as well, or that business or that entity. And this is what I have modeled, my sort of education around. So the impact from behavior could be that today, say you're a business and you have a plastic bottle, and suddenly tomorrow, everybody decides that they will no longer use plastic bottles. So, as a behavior, that change would have an impact on you and a negative impact on you. So the understanding of both these impacts is very important to move forward in a more responsible and greener economy. The next slide, please. So, when you look at it in the business sense, impact is linked to risk. And, especially when we're talking about climate change and climate action, um, one of the biggest things that we'll be facing, or we have started facing, related to climate change is the sort of the instability and the unknownness about what the weather patterns will be like, what other changes will there be, and we're already starting to see that. We're experiencing hotter summers now. The weather patterns are showing more extreme weather events. So with that, businesses, when they're considering their impact, the impact that they have on society and environment and so on, and the other side of the coin, the impact that it could have on their business, it's very important to understand the type of risks. um, so physical risk is that, there could be some sort of issues related to, if there's flooding, obviously, warehouses can get flooded. The material that you need for production uh, will not be available to you on time. You won't get your products to the market on time. So all of these risks are related to the business. And to understand risks, educators need to now educate who the society at large on understanding these risks and preparing for this risk. So what we do at the Center of Excellence in Responsible Business, when we have our workshops or webinars, so we bring in a knowledge partner to talk about these risks, and that knowledge partner could be from anywhere in the world. So he or she would know the most about it. And then what we do is we bring in a practitioner, a company in Pakistan who is already managing the risks and who is already managing, how to move forward on this. So these are the ways that we basically educate the people on managing climate action or any sort of other related issue that is coming up related to our way that we're working. So the areas that we work in at the center are creating, as I've talked about it, creating livelihoods, gender equality, inclusive and sustainable systems. And all of these basically are intertwined. And the discussion about the triple bottom line, or environment, society, and economy, do become part of that sort of discussion. Today, there's a lot of discussion on impact investing and looking at ESG investments and measuring, the impact, so that the investors that are now investing in you are more basically aware of the risks that they're taking. So this is something that follows on that, all of these things need to be part of education now as well. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to close off with two slides. Firstly, as I've talked about knowledge, so these are the sort of knowledge requirements that I feel that are needed for a greener economy. And this is basically what we're doing at SERV. Life cycle analysis, we do bring it up in our teachings, environmental accounting, social assessments, and then obviously how to tie it with your business plans in the workplace. And then the practitioner approaches that we engage with businesses to find a local example. And then identify a measurement approach to identify what your impact. And that has become very important. And we are seeing, even in global regulation, that now companies are going to be asked not to just give their measurements, but identify their impact as well. At the end of the day, there is this saying by Peter Drucker, that you can't measure what you don't, well, you can't manage what you don't measure. And it's very important when you look at it in terms of the environment and society as well. So to understand your impact is the last slide. Okay, so this is what we've tied up with it in the SDG leadership program as well. Is first we talked about impact. So as we all know, the SDGs are goals that have been developed by globally by the world on the way to move forward toward a better world, basically. So uh, what we've done is we've identified good practices in businesses in Pakistan. And as part of our workshops and webinars, we focus on uh, methods and strategies to move forward on these SDGs, which will actually lead to a greener economy as well. So next slide. So what I'd like to leave the way the discussion with today is that um, in terms of identifying impacts, which I feel is very important for as a skill to know for to moving towards a better future, it's basically important to know what is your impact. And the best way, a best tool that I think from my understanding is the life cycle analysis, because whatever you're doing, it gives you or any sort of product or any sort of service that you're providing or anything that uses resources, if you can identify what's going in and then what's going out on those on at every level of the resources, basically you can identify what your impact is. So I'd like to leave this as a food for thought, and thank you for this session. Sorry, Amber, you're mute.
Yes, can you hear me now? Thank you so much, Nazish, because I think so you outlined quite beautifully how what the kind of opportunities there are and what you're doing already. I'm going to sort of open the panel up for any questions or comments, and I'll take three, and then we'll move on to the next presentation. You can just raise your hand and speak. Okay, all right. I don't think there are any questions or comments that I know of. So I'm going to move on. And I think it's a natural progression. You talk about education as well. If we could have Dr. Dinesh, if he online, I think he is. If Dr. Dinesh, you could talk about, if you could start your presentation, please.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Hello from Nepal to everyone attending this very important seminar today.
Mm.
My presentation, as I have just shared, is on facing climate challenges, prospects of green jobs. Could you please help me to display my slides? Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Now I can see it here. So the for many years we said that the climate change is a real happening. Here, as a synonym, I'm also using the word global warming. Let us be clear that global warming was not a purpose, but it was a consequence of industrialization. And science knew that the burning of fossil fuel would pollute the environment and heat the earth. But In the rising capitalism, that is humans' greed of wealth, science became helpless, and it is still so. Many countries around the world today have already set out plans for how they intend to tackle the problems we face. But the recent report by IPCC may well speed up this process significantly. This IPCC report said boosting skills and knowledge across the societies can help us shift our response to the crisis from incremental to transformational. The benefits of such action go far beyond reducing climate change, and it includes economic development. For instance, the International Labour Organization has estimated that some 24 million jobs worldwide could be created in the green economy by 2030, which is less than 10 years now. And everyone here present know that SDG Goal 13 calls for urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. And to address climate change, countries have adopted the Paris Agreement to limit global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius. And how is this possible? To my opinion, this is possible, as IPCC has underlined, with the help of enhancing our skill and enhancing our knowledge. Next slide, please. The IPCC has called for a decade of action and skills. Many of the effects caused or exacerbated by climate change may now be irreversible, very unfortunately. 40% of the world's people today are highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, which are arriving much faster than most we had previously thought. So IPCC has called the next 10 years as a decade of action in which humans, that means you and me, will have a task with gravest duties, that is saving the earth and ourselves. A radical change is needed, that is skills, which can spark this change to create zero carbon societies. Next slide, please. So we are now talking about green skill and knowledge. What is green skill? An organization, CEDEFA, has defined green skills as the knowledge, abilities, values, and attitude needed to live in, develop, and support a society which reduces the impact of human activity on the environment. So it is not only the skill, but also an attitude. Taken together, green skill is generally composed of three dimensions, namely knowledge, skills and abilities, and attitude and values, needed by all the workers to promote sustainable development in social, economy, and environment. Next slide, please. Recently, the LinkedIn, I guess most of you are a member of this. It has conducted a study on green skill and found that the share of green talent in the workforce increased from 9.6% in 2015 to 13.3% so far in 2022, which is 38.5% growth rate. Similarly, in the past year, more than 10% of job posting required skills having explicitly required at least one green skill. And workers are increasingly skilling in green and transitioning into green and greening jobs, driving positive net transitions into these jobs. So at LinkedIn, they call it Great Reshuffle. It means it is an unprecedented moment for us in the history where we are reimagining the future of work. And one of the major challenges of today is to prevent the climate change, as we know. And this reimagining of future of work is very important in this aspect. Next slide, please. Now, let me briefly toss into what Nepal is doing and what Nepal can do. Nepal, perhaps most of you are familiar, is a federal democratic system we have here with a population of 29.14 million. Our global share of carbon dioxide emission is just 0.02%. However, the GDP cost due to climate change that this country has to bear is estimated about 13.15%. Next slide, please. So this shows the human resources that Nepal is using. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar, but I'm sure that all of us are facing with this work migration. And from Nepal, at least 4 million people have already got approval from the government. Imagine that work approval of 4 million means 13.7% of the total population, which is 1/3 of youth population. And they, of course, bring remittance back to home, which is equivalent to US dollars 8.79 billion. It was in 2019, just before the COVID. And this remittance you can compare with national budget of Nepal, which is 11.7 billion US dollar. Now, let's see the supply and demand of Nepali migrant worker. As you can see here, there are 4 classes. The demand for unskilled is 26, but we are supplying 51. The demand for semi-skilled is 35%, and the supply is 26. The demand for skilled Nepali migrant worker is 37%, but the supply is only 20. What does it mean? It means there is a potential, there is a chance of upscaling the skill of our migrant workers and increase the remittance. And of course, at this moment, I would emphasize upskilling the skill of green knowledge or green skills. Next slide, please. So, what are the facilities there to conduct or to upscale the skills? We have in Nepal, there are vocational institutions, or also known as polytech institutions, at constitutional level, collaborative level, community level, private level, and also short-term courses are there. And the intake is in diploma nearly 40,000 a year, which includes engineering, health, agriculture, and others. And at the 10 class level, grade 10 level, the intake is about 35,000 plus. Until now, that is till 2019, We already have the graduates, more than 12,000 with a diploma in engineering, more than 55,000 diploma graduates in health, and more than 5,000 agriculture graduates, and in other sectors, more than 200. At the school level, this number is still far higher. For instance, in engineering, it is more than 62,000. In health, it is nearly 90,000. In agriculture, it is 57,000, more than that, and others, nearly 6,000. So these these graduates can be given further training on green skill and be helpful to mitigate the climate change impact. Next slide, please. So, beside the polytech institutions in Nepal, there are some projects of skill ups. For example, one of the institutions called Separate is working with a German organization, WHS, with the support of BMZ, and they are working in 3 districts out of 77, and their target group is at least 2,994. So such kind of green skilling up is coming in the country. Next slide, please. So that was all about Nepal. Now let's go back to global scenario. So in the global scenario, the employers, that is the industries and other organizations, they are looking for manpower with green skills, which are much needed for promoting sustainable development in social, economic, as well as environment. And the major areas of impact, as we know, of climate change are industries, transportation, logging, and urbanization, agriculture, where we need the green skills. And one of the studies have found that the 10 most common green skills demanded by various industrial sectors are: number 1, design skill; number 2, leadership skill; number 3, management; number 4, energy; number 5, city planning; number 6, landscaping; number 7, communications; number 8, waste management; number 9, procurement; and finally the financial skill. Next slide, please. So how this green skill demand is growing? You can see from here that the talent, for example, in one of the slide, in one of the figure here, in the table here, in the left side, you can see the apparel and the fashion industry. As you can see here, Europe and North America, they share the green talent. They are predominantly the traditional design hubs, where the green talents, they are growing at least at 5.8% and 4.4% annually for last 5 years or so. And similarly, as you know, the manufacturing hubs, which is predominant Asia, the share of green talent has grown by 5.9% in the same period. That is from 2015 to 2021. And moving to the electric has again reshaped the talent profile of the automotive industry. The need for innovation to cut emissions has influenced a sustained technological change in European automobile industries. Again, the LinkedIn data shows that the share of green talent has been increased by 11.3% annually for the past 5 years. And some of the fastest growing sustainable transportation skills in the region are electric vehicles and energy management, as shown here. Next slide, please. This is my final slide. This is again from the LinkedIn study, which has a huge number of the membership. The chart here shows that the top five fastest growing green jobs between 2016 and 2021 in annual growth are sustainable manager, which is 30%. You can see the large spot there, the green one. The next is wind turbine technician, which is 24%. The next is solar consultant, which is 23%, and then ecologist, 22%, and the environmental health and safety specialist, 20%. So this shows how the green jobs are increasing worldwide. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dinesh. That was really comprehensive because we didn't just understand um, uh, what the situation in terms of green jobs and skills that are needed for green jobs is in terms of graduates and diplomas, but also, what the global demand is. And, we've been reading about many companies where green jobs are actually in high demand. They come at the sort of intersection of technology as well as sustainability. And I think that's why perhaps design may be number one. But I also noticed waste management skills was something that you talked about as a skill that's required in terms of green jobs. And we have with us, for instance, I'm going to now sort of go through, we have three speakers left. We have Shahadat Hussain from Bangladesh. I'd like you to go first, and just as a reminder, you're the executive director of the American Chamber of Commerce in Bangladesh. After that, I would like Kidus Afzor to speak about Cubic, his tech company which turns plastic waste into low carbon buildings. And at the end, we will have Ahmed Shabar and Sumaya. But if you could go first and speak about, we've learned about Nepal, we've learned a little bit about Pakistan. Talk to us about Bangladesh and how you see Bangladesh placed in terms of green jobs and skills development and the demand at the industry and business level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. Thank you so much for inviting me as well as asking me to talk a little bit about Bangladesh. First of all, I would like to thank our co-panelists, those who have already explained the ecosystem of the demand of the green skills, the growth of green jobs, market size. But if you ask me, to be very frankly, when I speak for AmCham Bangladesh, I have two flags on my hand. On one hand, it is Bangladesh, and the other hand, it is American Chamber of Commerce. So first of all, if we talk about the place I work in, AmCham, this is the organization of American companies and those American entities. Wherever they operate, wherever they run in a sustainable fashion, and they all bring in the technology, they all bring in the knowledge, and they all share the best practices across the world. At the same time, when I talk about Bangladesh, it is one of the uh, most vulnerable in terms of climate changes. And but still, given the circumstances, if you look at Bangladesh, and despite the demerits and the challenges that we're facing, we are doing a fairly good. If you in the pre-COVID arena, if you look at the annual growth rate of Bangladesh, it was staggering. And despite the challenges, despite those disasters, both natural and the changes taking place across the globe, Bangladesh was on the verge of facing a difficult challenges, and it was getting out of it. And when I talk about AmCham, we have a fairly good member base, those common names. Starting, if you start alphabetically, it is like, American life insurance company, which is commonly known as MetLife, then Coca-Cola, then Chevron, G. These are our members, and these are the flag bearers of those green initiative. These are the global companies. They not only think about profit, they not only think about bringing out the changes, they are thinking about the changes to be in sustainable manner. So in Bangladesh, it is in a different trajectory last 10 years. Basically in the pre-COVID arena, COVID has changed as everything, but still we are learning a lot. We see that if you look at the demographic dividend, it is a very important and significant aspect of Bangladesh nowadays, because the 35% of the total population right now is in between 25 to 35 years old, and this will basically lead the nation at least for next 30 years. So these youth are bringing out those new ideas, new technologies. They are bringing out those startup ideas. They are bringing out those challenges that we did not think of tackling yet, and they are bringing in a fashion that government, the stakeholders, as well as the society is yet to learn. And we are learning in a perfect manner from other neighboring countries how we can take it forward. Multinational organizations, not only that multinational companies, as well as those donor agencies, multilateral organizations, and the stakeholders and the government, they are all working hand in hand, and private sectors, or even entities like AmCham, entities like other chambers of commerce, they are putting their hands together so that they can take this initiative, into the next level. And we see the future it is something different, because we don't call this human resources anymore. We call it a capital, and if we can capitalize on these concepts and ideas, we feel we can take it forward. And I've just been learning from the presentation, the way our fellow panelist, just my predecessor, shown in Nepal. We are also one of those countries where we are contributing a little to this climate changes, but we are receiving the effect of these global changes. So this is my few cents, not 2 cents, as of now. I look forward to come back and make a few more comments, listening to my fellow colleagues and other co-panelists. Thank you, Amber. Back to you.
Thank you so much. That was really informative as well. As you said, just like in Bangladesh, there's a large sort of young demographic in Pakistan as well, which, it really, countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal really need to prioritize which areas of education or skill development these young people need going into the future, given that there are opportunities, given that it contributes to combating climate change, which is obviously, the existential threat of our times. I'm going to move on quickly to the next speaker now. And, I've been really dying to hear about Cubic and the tech company that you started, Kirus. If you could say a few words, and lastly, we'll have Ahmed and Sumaya after that with their presentations, and then a round of questions as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on this panel. Very excited to speak to you about the journey of the company that we've built, Cubic, which is an environmental technology company that converts plastic waste into low carbon, low cost building materials. Before I get into that, it probably merits giving you a bit of a background into how I and my co-founder Penda got into trash and the world of how we can contribute to tackling various environmental challenges. Both Penda and I worked at UNICEF. We worked on a variety of projects. Myself, mostly spent my time looking into the role of digital technologies and software for advancing the rights and needs of children. Now, I'll go a little bit into a project that gave life to Cubic. This was a UNICEF project that we started in Cote d'Ivoire in West Africa, where we were taking plastic waste and making bricks that can make affordable classrooms. Before I get into that, there is a book that I would recommend to everyone on this session. It's called Project Drawdown. It was probably the most transformative book that I've read, that was able to take a very complex and frightening, in my opinion, subject like climate change and break it down into what we can actually do. It gives very practical, data-driven solutions that we can all focus on that can put a real dent into climate. As part of that, what I learned is that educating girls is a climate solution. Waste management and recycling is a climate solution. Tackling how we use alternative building materials and replacing concrete is a climate solution. The moment that we saw this, we knew that we were onto something very big. If we start my presentation, one of the first images that I want to show you is what our workplace looks like. What you're seeing here is the largest landfill in East Africa. It's located in the capital city of Ethiopia, in Addis, and it's called Koshe. Koshe is infamously known for a catastrophe that occurred in 2018, where the landfill was so large and unmanaged that it caused an avalanche that killed over 100 people. This led to an awakening into how we actually think about trash, how we manage it, and how we can empower the lives of people here. Now, I call this my workplace because ultimately what Cubic is doing is transforming the waste products that come into places like Koshe, and not only converting it into building materials, but also empowering the lives of people that live on it. In the case of Koshe, there's over 2,000 people that actually live in this landfill. You can see some of them here, and they subsist by picking waste and selling it for menial amounts to the market. What we are doing is not only giving them a very decent wage for taking plastic waste and giving it to us, but we're also making sure that they have opportunities to thrive beyond the work that they do. Unfortunately, most of them are women, most are mothers, some are girls. So when we knew that by simply being able to empower the people that live in Koshe is a climate solution, this was something that we were really happy about. Now, if you go to the next slide, what we want to show you is what that trash can look like. This is a byproduct of the project that we did at UNICEF, where we were able to transform over 4 tons of plastic waste into classrooms that could look like this. Not only are these schools more affordable, not only were we able to empower mothers and girls to be able to make these buildings, but also the carbon emissions that comes from building this versus a traditional cement-based product is 5 times less. So if you think about that, what we are doing around waste management and how we can find alternative materials can actually be a great solution for tackling climate change, bringing affordability into how we build infrastructure for things like the school system. But like I mentioned in the beginning, empowering lives by introducing new skill sets and decent jobs within the green economy. If you go to the next slide. But our vision goes beyond just simply building bricks. We want to reimagine what a life in a green economy can look like for all. Whether you're rich or poor, being able to afford a very modern, high quality infrastructure, whether it's for your schools or for your homes, is really important to us. So as Cubic, what we're doing is reimagining a life which is clean, affordable for all, in a way that builds dignity, both for the environment and the income that they bring in. So what does that impact look like? So on my last slide, if you go to my next slide, what we are doing is we are taking factories in countries like Ethiopia, but all over the world that could do several things. The first one is be able to take out over 45,000 kilograms of plastic waste every day. Just taking Koshe into perspective, there's over 200,000 tons or 200,000 kilos that come in, what we're able to do is put a really big dent on these landfills. The second thing is be able to put over a gigaton of carbon reduction within the construction industry. Each factory would be able to take over 100 megatons a year of reduction in CO2 emissions. But the more impact and more business that we do across the world, we can actually significantly contribute to climate change and the way that we're reducing our CO2 emissions. But finally, the part that we really care about and the DNA of what Penda and I have built at Cubic is that we're actually empowering the lives of women. Beyond the statistics that Project Drawdown has given us around how education and empowering women is a climate solution, what we want to do is give them very decent jobs. This means that they will contribute back to their community. They're investing more in their children. They're investing more in green skills, as our panelists have already mentioned. And as a business, be a responsible agent for how we're environmentally and socially bringing change for countries like Ethiopia and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating, and I have to say those buildings were absolutely beautiful, whether it's a house or a school. And I think you touched upon actually one of the most important points that we really need to speak about, which is it isn't just economic opportunities, but economic opportunities and educational and skill development opportunities for young women and girls as well, who not only just who work in sectors that are very largely affected by climate change, agriculture, for instance. So thank you for speaking about that, and I'm definitely going to look out for Project Drawdown. I'd like to invite our next speakers on. If you could go, Ahmed, if you could speak about it, because I think it's also related in a sense as well. We just learned what Cubic does. Let's learn about what Garbage Can does.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak over here. I would like to start by sharing my screen, I guess, so that we could share a short video that introduces what Garbage Can does and the interventions that we're trying to make with our clients, various collaborations with organizations like RLCC that Sumaya Badai, the speaker next to me, after me, belongs to. Let me just share my screen, if that's okay. Here we go. Can you see the video? Can anybody see the video? I just wanted to ask. Okay, let me try once again. Here we go. Perfect. How is it going to? Sorry. Here we go. Sorry. My name is Ahmed Sabr, and I'm the founder and CEO of Garbage Can Sustainable Waste Management. This green area is a cultivated garden where we grow vegetables from the compost area. Right beside us is our material dairy facility and the compost area. As they say, that waste is only wasted if it gets wasted. And over here, nothing gets wasted at all. This is where your waste gets sorted, this is where your waste gets recycled, this is where your waste gets composted. And this is all possible because you've already been sorting at this point. We are now moving towards is the vegetable garden, and I will show you what happens at the material recycling. These are our compost pits where your organic waste is a recycling area where your recyclable items get further sorted and recycled. It gets sorted into landfill waste, into organic waste that gets composted. Plastic gets sorted into HDPE, PET, or other forms of plastic. Metal gets sorted into aluminum, iron, copper, or other forms of metal. Paper gets sorted into cardboard, newspaper, and other forms of paper. Trash is one of those things that you don't really think about. Once you throw it in the dustbin, you don't really know where it goes. As the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. Or as they say it in the Urdu Mahavra, Aant Ojal Pahad Ojal. But because you've made a conscious effort of recycling your waste with garbage cans, I'm glad that you're helping us reduce that mountain of waste. Okay, so you've seen the garbage can materials recovery facility. This is where your waste gets processed, sorted, and gets ready to be recycled, composted, and upcycled. But the story of your waste doesn't just end here. We send your non-recyclable trash to get upcycled at Rana Liaquat Crafts and Furniture, thereby reducing your waste further. Plus, it also helps employ several artisans that convert your waste into arts and crafts. Great. So that was a quick intro of what garbage can does, and like very briefly, of course, we commented on what RLCC does as well. But Sumaya will then speak about our like RLCC's work with livelihoods and with upcycled items and how they're supporting women in like with green jobs and so on. So if somebody can share that like our slide as well, please. Great. So very quickly, I just wanted to mention why garbage. I started garbage can. I started garbage can about 2016, 2017, when I noticed that like trash was a huge issue in Karachi, and people were talking about how to resolve the issue, but nobody was really talking about sustainable solutions to it. Hence the name sustainable waste management. And for me, when I say sustainable, like of course it means sustainable for the environment, sustainable for the community that we live in, sustainable for the employees that I work with, and sustainable for myself as well. Because waste management is an essential service. So if I'm able to sustain the company and the employees, then we can together sustain the community and the environment. And our vision, of course, is to go from the landfill that like our friend who spoke before me showed. Pakistan's landfills basically look like that as well, and they're not really landfills; they're basically just dumps, and that of course leads to many more climate issues and health issues and several various issues, as you can see what the existing conditions look like. And our mission is to improve the waste management system, or at least provide better standards of waste management for the future. If we can move forward, please. So yeah, so we're trying to move towards a circular economy, and we're trying to make interventions by working with the corporate sector as well, working with residents as well. So Garbage Can does three main things. I call it the Garbage Can ARC. A is for awareness, where we go and give talks at universities, schools, and so on, or even this platform is great for that. And R is for recycling management, where we work with several different streams, 10 plus different waste streams of recyclable items. One of the things that we, so for example, the aluminum that we give to a motorcycle parts manufacturing company, and they make handlebars out of them. The plastic bottles that we give to a company that makes fiber out of them. The cardboard that we get, or the paper that we receive, we give to a company that, of course, pulps it and turns it back into paper as well. So thereby, we try to contribute to a circular economy, so that we could rely less and less on virgin material. So recycling is a sustainable practice if we do it properly. Of course, recycling started as a greenwashing gimmick for the plastic industry, when plastic was invented. But increasingly, it's become one of the solutions that is required if we are to what's it called move forward with a proper solution for the waste issue. If we could move forward, please. So recycling has always been happening in Pakistan, but we, I guess, were never able to get into the 21st century. So we call it kabadi culture. So there's the scavengers that come in, or the recyclers that come in. They're called kabadis. So we're trying to make it more tech based as well. We're trying to bring in research and development. For example, we brought in extruder machines and so on by looking at precious plastic, like a Belgian-based open source organization that shares their designs. And of course, we're moving towards mechanized sorting systems as well. Like what you saw was a manual system, but we're hoping to get mechanized sorting systems soon. If we could move forward, please. And like as you can see, we work with schools and corporates and restaurants and everything as well. There's several different intervention points. If we could move on, please. In 2020, this is when COVID hit, and we were, like everything was shut down. All the universities and schools and all the businesses were shut down. We still managed to bring in about 10 tons of recycled items on a monthly basis, which is very little, but still, it had a bit of an impact. And as you can see, how many different waste streams there are just within plastic. You can pinpoint at least 5 to 6 waste streams, and within metals as well, you can pinpoint 3 or 4 different waste streams, and even under those, you can pinpoint several others. Same with paper. So these waste streams actually basically translate into economic opportunities, because of course we have to work with the post-consumer waste, then transport it, then sort it, and then sell it to like end users who recycle it. If we could move forward, please. And moving with the times, we're also trying to create proper apps for it. As I say, there's an app for it. And because waste management is an essential service, and there are several allying industries as well. So during COVID, of course, we started COVID disinfection services and fumigation services for mosquitoes and so on and so forth. And as you saw in the video, we started a composting facility, and we're in the process of creating an e-shop. We also looked at e-waste, but that's a much more difficult industry to look into, but we're still in the process for that. If we could move on, please. So this brings me to learning in this era of climate change. As mentioned in my profile, it's not just Garbage Can that I'm looking at. Garbage Can is a company, and I wanted to, of course, focus on that because that's where I started off from. And then I learned from Garbage Can what the other social issues were. It included employment, it included child labor, it included health and environmental issues, it included a refugee crisis, because much of the informal industry in Pakistan, or much of the informal waste management or recycling industry in Pakistan, is made out of refugees that don't have any other employment opportunities. Then there's also environmental impact, such as urban floods, smog, because many people just pick up the recyclable items, but then they don't transport the useless waste or the landfill waste to the landfill. So in order to get rid of that, they dump it into what's it called, stormwater drains, or they burn the plastic, which of course leads to smog and urban floods. So some of the interventions that we looked at, if you could please go back to that last slide. To the very last slide, please. Yeah. We just recently started working with, or created a proper awareness campaign with students from Indus Valley. It's called Where You Been, which is of course a play on words as to where do you throw your trash and where have you been during this entire environmental crisis. And the focus is on creating awareness about environmental issues and how your waste contributes to them, and how the waste that's produced in Pakistan, what the challenges are, like what the processes are, and so on. And we're working with corporate entities to promote this, and like through this we will also have cleanup drives, etc., so that we can like create more on ground impact as well. We're also in the process of starting residential waste management through the employees that are at these that work at these corporate entities. Then there's a secondhand library. The secondhand library, because a lot of people, they try to well, like when they're recycling or when they're doing spring cleanup, they give several books away as well. And because like they might be old books, they might be old GCSE books, or they might be old newspapers or magazines or even novels. But instead of recycling those, we've been storing them, and hopefully we'll be creating a secondhand library soon. We've like done some fundraising for that as well. We've looked at certain spaces where school going children live nearby, in colonies, or like etc., or like around the peripheries of Karachi. And this will hopefully lead to educating kids, or at least creating like a safe space where kids can come in and read these old books, and these old books can get a second life as well. At the same time, we work with we're in the process of creating like a program to work with scavenger children. There's a huge child labor issue in the informal industry, and of course in the formal industry as well. So we're hoping that through the secondhand library effort, we'll be able to divert kids from the streets to our library, and hopefully through through to educational spaces. As you mentioned, that like going to schools and everything is difficult in this era. So hopefully that will add or that will reduce the problem and add to the number of school going kids. We also recently started working with some ulama or religious clerics uh, across Karachi. And the reason why I've labeled madrasas as and like an eco Islam, because the conversation was about what Islam or what religion has to say about environmental issues, and how we can create sustainable spaces within mosques or within madrasas where several kids, of course, are or young adults are housed. So that's one other intervention that we're looking at the as we speak. And then, of course, we work with RLCC. That Somaya will explain after me. And RLCC, of course, it's an entity that's entirely run by women, and they house up to about 400 artisans. And what Garbage Can does, what the collaboration between us and RLCC is, that the non-recyclable waste that we get, or the waste that we think can still be diverted from the landfills, we give to RLCC. So, for example, there's several plastic bags that RLCC then, or the artisans then crochet them into larger what's it called crochet them into larger beach bags or multi-use bags, and of course then they sell those bags into the market, and that creates an economy of sorts for them, or a cottage industry for them. Similarly, I believe they get leftover cloth from textile industries, and so on and so forth, and newspapers as well. So these are some of the interventions that, like, under Garbage Can, we're actively pursuing. And of course, pursuing waste management properly creates employment opportunities for those that are working in the informal sector as well, without any safety nets. That's another part of the reason for creating a formal industry is so that we could get the informal industry members into the formal industry, so that at least they can get some sort of health benefits or minimum wage and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's something that we're trying to do with Garbage Can. And as the profile mentioned, that like I also run something called the Environmental, which is an online platform for environmental news / opinion. The reason why I started that was because I noticed working through Garbage Can that there wasn't much conversation on environmental issues up until recently. And one of the ways of of doing that was to create a platform that can share environmental news, because much of the news is related to climate change, whether it's food shortage or water issues or smog or the electric vehicle policy issues and so on and so forth. And similarly, after that, I created something called Pakistan Maholiyati Tahaffuz Movement, which basically translates to a Pakistan environmental protection movement, and that's to that's basically for advocacy for environmental issues or any issues that lead to climate change, so that we can start countering it. So, yeah. So hopefully, we'll be able to create more jobs into the future, create more awareness, and also lead to learning in this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. That was fascinating. And I think one of the great things that I learned from your presentation my internet is working up again. So I'll quickly move on to Sumaya before it goes away again, and I'll try to fix it meanwhile. Sumaya, we have a natural segue here as well, because Ahmed is providing garbage for you to turn into gold. Over to you.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Tabadlab, for having me on board. All of these presentations have been extremely informative. I don't have a lot of statistics, but I have a lot of stories for you. So I'm just going to start off with the continuation of Ahmed's video, since I'm right after him, so that kind of links together. And then I'm going to kind of go back and give you an introduction about RLCC, which stands for Rana Liaquat Craftsmen's Colony. I'm the creative director there since the past 4 years. It's a very exciting place to be at, and so we'll get into that in a bit. Share screen. Just give me 1 second. All right.
Okay, so you've seen the garbage can materials recovery facility. This is where your waste gets processed, sorted, and gets ready to be recycled, composted, and upcycled. But the story of your waste doesn't just end here. We send your non-recyclable trash to get upcycled at Rana Liaquat Craftsman Colony, thereby reducing your waste further. Plus, it also helps employ several artisans that convert your waste into arts and crafts.
So what we try to do through our Livelihood Department is that we want to train the women in the community of Shah Faisal Colony to understand environmental issues. So we train them in making upcycled products. So how we do this is we are in collaboration with Garbage Can. And what you can do is you can donate all of this textile waste and plastic waste to Garbage Can, which then some of it comes to us. And we use that as donated raw material with our artisans to crochet into beach bags or into little bird keychains or bookends. So we utilize all of that fabric. And we've also now started a loom program where we take all of these strips of fabric and we join them together, and we've started making rag rugs out of it.
हमारी बेसिकली ज़्यादातर जो यहाँ पे प्रोडक्ट्स बनती हैं वो हम लोग रिसाइकल से बनाते हैं. हम लोग कुछ भी परचेजिंग बहुत कम बाहर से कर रहे हैं. बिल्कुल जो वेस्ट होता है कचरा ने, उससे हम लोग इतनी अच्छी प्रोडक्ट्स बना रहे हैं. उसमें हमारी मटेरियल बिल्कुल कम लग रहा है और हमारी आर्टिसान को ज़्यादा लेबर मिल रही है. उससे फ़ायदा ये होता है.
ये पेपर डस्टबिन है, ये मैंने पेपरों से बनाया है. और ये बूम रोल है, ये मैंने झाड़ू से बनाई है.
मैं यहाँ पर 1 साल आर्टिजान के जरिए काम कर रही थी. और उसके बाद जो है यहाँ पर मैं फुल टाइम स्टाफ हूँ, ट्रेनिंग रूम असिस्टेंट के ज़रिए काम कर रही हूँ। लोग कचरा समझते हैं, हम उसी कचरे से हम बहुत अच्छा प्रोडक्ट बना के और बहुत सारे लोगों को यहाँ पर काम दिया जाता है और उनकी हेल्प की जाती है। मैं यहाँ अपना काम लेने के लिए आई थी, जिसमें मुझे यहाँ पर आकर पता चला कि हम लोग जिस चीज़ को वेस्ट समझकर कचरा समझकर फेंक देते हैं, उस कतरन से बहुत अच्छी चीज़ें यहाँ पर बनती हैं। ये चीज़ें मैंने यहाँ का बनाना सीखी भी है और मैं बनाती भी हूँ, और यही अभी मेरा घर का आमदनी का जरिया, और अब मैं यहाँ पर 2.5 साल के बाद एक स्टाफ मेंबर बन चुकी हूँ।
So just to encourage you, bring in all of your waste and we're going to upcycle it and save the environment together. All right. So that was a little bit about one of the aspects. Oh, wait. Oh, you couldn't see the video. Oh, no. We can't see her screen. Oh, no. Could you hear it?
Yes, we were able to hear it, although I would have loved to see the lovely sort of crafts that have been created from the garbage that Ahmed collects.
Might I play it again? Or perhaps I could share it with you and you can probably post it somewhere.
I think that would be great because I think that would...
It's just a 2-minute video.
I think that would be great if you could share it, and I'm sure the Tabadlab and the team will be able to share it as well. So we can have a look again, because I really wanted to see that embroidery.
Oh, no. It's just a 2-minute video. So if you like, I could even just kind of scroll through it and you don't have to see the whole thing. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. All right. Let's do that.
All right. We'll just scroll through it this time. Oh, how sad. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
No, we can't see your screen. We only see you.
Is that I share screen? Share screen. Share screen.
So while you're trying to figure that out, I have a question here. And I think it's interesting where you've taken something that's obviously a very sort of centuries old craft and skill that women know and learn from. It's passed down generation to generation, but you've adapted it.
Right.
So if you could speak a little about that, and whether that's teaching that skill, was it all difficult? Was it a challenge? How do the women adapt? Obviously, they're getting, they're earning from it, so it shouldn't be a problem. But still, just if you could explain that, because we couldn't see it, so I'm going to have to ask you questions.
Okay, so Ahmed has the continuation of the video, so I think they're going to try and play it from his video.
Okay,
but while they figure that out with Ahmed, I'll give you a bit of a background. So RLCC is it's the oldest NGO in Pakistan. It was founded by Begum Rana Liaqat Ali Khan, who was the first lady of Pakistan. She was the wife of Liaqat Ali Khan. And she started in 1947 when partition happened. She started a housing community for the artisans that were migrating from India to Karachi. And later in 1954, they realized that they wanted to inaugurate RLCC into an NPO, which was primarily for women empowerment. So they started with one vocational training class with a few sewing machines that someone had donated. And from then, since 1954 till now, RLCC has been throughout a women empowerment organization. We have vocational training classes for women. We teach them English grammar, basic computer skills, computer graphics, sewing and embroidery, and we have beautician courses. We also have a daycare for all the moms who want to drop off their kids while they learn or while they work. We have a school, which is until metric, where hopefully we have higher secondary as well very soon till inter. Our school has 550 students. It's a co-ed school and it's an English medium school. So Shah Faisal Colony is one of the most impoverished communities in Karachi. So a lot of people, when they're migrating from around Pakistan, they first come to Shah Faisal. So there's a lot of influx of people coming in and leaving because rent is cheap there. We also have a clinic that offers mother and child services, gynecology. We have a gynecologist who comes in. We have Recovery House that does free mental health sessions for people of the community. LRBT is offering free eye checkups for the community. And then we also, so in 2008, we have we have an outreach program department which offers support to the rest of the programs in the organization, and they also then go out and do community trainings on in this case or in the topic that we're speaking about. We do community trainings on community cleanup. We get schools in the area, we get students from these schools. Ahmad has also done a collaboration once with our outreach team where they go out in the community and we pick up brooms and we start cleaning the streets. So all of these things are interlinked with each other. It's a holistic system. And so in 2008, the Livelihood Department was formed, which was to support the mothers of the children that are studying in our school or the women in the community that are skilled in craft, because let's go back to 1954, it did start for the artisans. So now we're looking at the women artisans that are in the community. So through our vocational training department, a lot of these women started coming in, and we said, okay, we need to create job opportunities for them. But how do we do that when these women that are coming with no education? I mean, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, very different story, right? There is literacy. Pakistan, very different story. 50% of our artisans are not literate at all. They haven't seen the inside of a classroom ever. So how are we, meant to kind of make them artisans that are entrepreneurs on their own? That's not possible. Even the ones that are literate or are educated, the level of education standard is not so high. So therefore, the Livelihood Department, what it does is it plays the role of a middleman, in sorts. We have a trade facilitation center, which within our department, so we took some of the more educated artisans and now have onboarded them as staff. And what they do is they sit with the rest of the artisans. First, they ask the artisan, okay, what skills do you possess? And then we ask them, which skill do you enjoy working on? Because if you're not going to enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to deliver a product that is going to be of high quality or any value really for you or for us or for the market that we're trying to sell it into. So alongside craft, and so in craft development or craft preservation, we ask them what and then we ask them what they like to do, and then we guide them. We sit them down, we show them Pinterest folders that we've kind of taken for inspiration. And then they select, okay, I can possibly make this product, and then we redesign it for them. So we're, not taking somebody else's copyright off of Pinterest. And we kind of then create that product according to the skill of that artisan. Now, there are a lot of artisans who come to us whose skill might not be of superior quality, or they don't have that much experience or practice within the specific technique that they're working in. So some of the techniques that we work with are crochet, stitching, embroidery, basketry. And so the ones that are not so skilled, we kind of train them into creating upcycled products. Now, RLCC takes in donation in kind everything. So you can send your microwave, your fridge, your sofa, your pots and pans, your clothes, your books, anything. And so within that program, we also have tailors that send us their textile waste. We have banks that send us their newspaper waste. We did a drive with schools around Karachi with Emma Chabbar, where we got the school kids. We told them, I said, look, every household has got one plastic bag in their house that has the rest of the plastic bags in that, so kindly bring us that plastic bag. So we got the school kids to collect all of the plastic bags from their homes, and they brought it in. And I think Ahmed mentioned this before, is that we taught the women that crochet. We taught them how to make beach bags out of these. Out of the newspaper that we get, we block print the newspaper, and then we turn those into various different gift bags. So I'd like to show you the products. If somebody has the product catalog, if you could please share that. As we're talking about the products, Tabadlab, somebody can present the product catalog. I can share the video. Okay, so share the product catalog. Let's see if they can pull that up. I don't know why I can't screen share. Can you try to share your screen again? All right, I will try to do that.
Yeah, hi. If you can hear me, are you able to share your screen?
I can hear you. Yeah. I'm just gonna give me 1 second. Oh no, it's gonna ask me to quit Google Chrome. Okay, no. If I do that, then I will be gone. So
Yeah,
I'm not
then
gonna
we
do
can't.
that.
We'd rather have you here.
The product catalog
Okay.
yeah, so they can play it.
Yeah, I think Ahmed can play it, and I want to sort of end this here now because again, what you've presented is a very holistic picture as well. So it isn't
Yes,
just about.
absolutely.
It
It has
isn't
to
just.
be holistic. I
It
mean, you
has to be,
can't
right?
talk just
Yeah.
about the environment without looking at social
Mm.
problems, without looking at
Exactly. So I mean, do you think that there are socioeconomic barriers to developing those skill sets for green jobs, or do you think that they're not as problematic as, for instance, if you look
I mean,
at the technology sector, for instance?
there's a lot of challenges. I mean, just coming to technology, right? If we talk about using Pinterest or using YouTube or using any platform for these artisans to be able to search for products that they can make, they can't because they don't have data, they don't have access
Yeah.
to phones, they cannot afford it. Plus, they don't know English, so they can't search any keywords. They cannot access information that we access, right? Like we can sit here
Yeah.
and about all of this awareness and all of this climate change and all of that, but the communities that are most affected by this, who have got the trash stuck in their gutters, who are living in contaminated water, who are exposed to all of this, do not have access to all of these awareness videos that we watch. I mean, if it wasn't for me watching this documentary called Addicted to Plastic, which was showing a whole mound of trash that is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in 2008, I probably would not have gotten into this line of work. I had dreams of becoming a fashion designer. And then, in my master's program, I kind of studied sustainability and social issues. And so therefore, my eyes opened and I said, okay, something needs to change. When I saw the documentary called True Cost on Rana Plaza, after which I kind of worked in the villages interior Sindh for 2 years in Pakistan, and that was an IKEA funded project. It was to put the children that are in child labor in the cotton fields into school. So learned about the problem with cotton and child labor, and so I would not have been doing what I'm doing had I not gained this awareness. So what we need above and beyond anything else, all of this study and statistics and all is great, but that needs to be turned into information in the regional language, which we can bring across to the people. What RLCC provides is a space for the community to come in so that we can create awareness for them, so that we can show them content that relates to what they are living and how they can make their society better and how they can make their situation better. So more and more NGOs, I think, need to concentrate on awareness more so than anything else. And then alongside that, as it is a holistic thing, you bring in job opportunities, you bring in green jobs, you bring in all of this, educate the children, teach the future generations. So it is all really linked together. There's a very interesting project we're doing right now with this organization called ACF. Many of you might know about it. It's an animal rights organization, and they are creating this amazing product, which is three-faceted. They are taking ghost nets from the ocean, which are bad for the ocean. So they're taking ghost nets. They are using artisans to create dog leashes out of these ghost nets, and so they are supporting their animal rights with the profit that they're making from there. They're supporting human rights by bringing jobs for artisans, and they're cleaning up the ocean. So these are, you know, this is the kind of product line that we need to kind of think about, like what are the different things that we can help and put together. Please ask these
I have
questions.
a few more questions. Yeah, if you saw some of the questions, and I'll repeat some of the questions that are coming in. So, what's the average age of the artisans? Do they sign some kind of bond? And what profit do they make?
All right, amazing. So we do not hire artisans that are below the age of 18. And we do not keep artisans that are above the age of 65, because they also then kind of start losing their eyesight, or they don't have the energy, or, you know, so then we kind of find another thing for them. So we say, okay, you can maybe get into our food business and, you know, make achars or cook something or fry something, or so we give them another livelihood, but we don't then get them to make products anymore, because that requires a lot of attention and better eyesight and good health to do. So the average age, I mean, they could range anywhere from 18 to 65. We have over 400 artisans that are registered with us from Shah Faisal Colony. The women do not sign any bond. They hear about us from word of mouth. They come to us. So we have the raw material, which a lot of the raw material is donated to us, most of it. And only in that case, if there is any raw material that is plastic, then we utilize that into a product that might not be thrown away. So it's something that you can use in decor, right? So it'll last a few more years before it goes into the trash. And otherwise, when we are purchasing product, we purchase product that is sustainable, that is eco-friendly, and or we're upcycling, right? So it's all paper products and stuff like that. So they do not sign anything with us. We provide the raw material to them. We provide the training to them. They decide what they want to make. They take the raw material home. They make it in within the time that they can make it in. I mean, if there is an order, then yes, we give them a deadline. But there are artisans that have been with us for many years, and so we've kind of classified. Okay, these are the artisans that are going to work on immediate orders, because we also do customization. So you can essentially order any product from us. If you send us a reference photo, or you have an idea, we can make it for you, or we can help you figure out what you want to make. So because like in weddings, you give these bith pouches, or you've got birthday decor, you've got birthday giveaways. There's so much we can.
Okay, so what do they get in return in terms of
labor,
money?
Yeah, so the labor that we give to them, we calculate. So when we are in the sampling process, we calculate the number of minutes it takes for that product to be developed. And then so we calculate the labor according to the minimum labor wage, which is 90 rupees per hour. So if that product is taking 3 hours to make, we pay the artisan 270 rupees labor for that product. So it is way above what anybody else in the I mean, we all go to Zainab market, and we've got these markets where people are middleman, and they pay nothing really to the artisans that are there. So because there's no system, right? But we've kind of figured out that okay, we have minimum labor wage, let's take that at least. If that's the minimum that we can pay somebody, right? So we have this year started doing that, and so we sample, we take the time, and we pay labor according to 90 rupees an hour currently. And if so, the minimum labor is higher, that'll go higher. And once because the department also right now is not making a profit, but once it does start making a profit, then we can kind of increase the labor wage for ourselves. Like we don't have to go according to minimum labor, we can pay them more.
Okay, all right. So you're looking to make a profit as well, and obviously, and
yes,
that also goes into
the growth of the
exactly.
Right?
So it actually goes to sustainability in other ways. If the business is sustainability, you can help these women be sustainable. Thank you so much for your presentation, and I had a lot of questions as well. So I'm going to move back to the panel quickly and round off. These really fascinating inputs and discussions into green jobs, what they would look like in a post-carbon world if we could have all the panelists back together. Thank you very much. And I would like to sort of, because I think there's also a great segue, I want to hear what the experience in Kenya has been actually, Kirus, because we've just heard in Pakistan, the barrier seems to be primarily technology and literacy. So what barriers or challenges do you find in terms of specifically as we speak about women and girls in acquiring the skills they need for green jobs?
I would say, just to start off, even beyond Kenya, one of the biggest burdens that is pushed, especially by industry, but just beyond by organizations, is following a fad that digital technology is the panacea to any green tech or green skill. And we need to really stop saying that. The first thing is it really does marginalize who can actually enter those skills at this point. So what we did is we took a step back and first tried to focus on the existing industry, who's working in it, and what they need. In our case, it has nothing to do with digital tech. It has a lot to do with safety, preparedness. It has to do with very soft business skills, how to keep books, right? And that can be done by pen and paper. You don't need a tablet to do that, right? So I think it's really important that, well, in my case with industry, that when we start thinking about how we address the needs for skills or education for women and girls, we don't start off by thinking of what's the trendiest stuff to talk about right now, but really focus on the reality. The reality is, at least in our case, if we're trying to target women and girls in landfills, forget about internet and electricity. I mean, just basic amenities around sewage and plumbing is already an issue, right? So we need to really look at empowering them economically. I think the most powerful thing that I've heard from some of these women is telling us, look, we don't need your handout. You don't need to tell us what you can't tell me what I need. Let me tell you what I need, and you help me get it, right? And what do they need? They need very basic amenities to live in. They need very simple protective gear to work with. They need some support around how to generate demand in their business, right? And especially for women, the part that is always striking as they first start by talking about their kids. They say, can you find a way of getting my daughter or my child or my son into a good school? Can you make sure that they have the notebooks that they need for their school, right? So we need to hear this sometimes, because unless you do get the basic necessities of people fulfilled, talking about everything else, which sounds like a great idea, is not going to be feasible. And there might be some adverse effects around actually leaving them out when you're doing this work. So I would say that's the biggest insight that we've had. The second one is generally cultural, and I think that's something worth pointing out. I mean, there are some job types that have traditionally been dominated by men, right? In the case of Ethiopia, almost exclusively all of the aggregators of waste were men. Simply saying, okay, now we're only going to hire female aggregators isn't the right solution. You actually have to have consensus building of including men in that process. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable as well. I mean, these are some of the biggest challenges that we see, mostly within the waste side, and I'm sure Ahmad has some perspective from his end as well.
All right, thank you so much. It's been really interesting. I hope you guys can hear me, because I have a feeling that my Wi-Fi is acting up again. But I'd like to turn to Dr. Dinesh. And I think, Dr. Dinesh, you spoke about how there were certain sectors where, young people, that's where they're getting their degrees or diplomas in. You spoke about agriculture and health and engineering, for instance. But I mean, if you could just expand on what, when you say that there are new professions such as sustainability and compliance, what does that mean? How do they fit into these other traditional degrees and diplomas that young people are getting? And do universities and colleges, do they have the curriculum, the syllabus, the will, the professors to teach these new disciplines? I'm not sure if my voice is going through, but I hope that the question has been conveyed. Let me just check.
I think Amber's internet is okay. Like, I believe Dinesh Saab is stuck.
I always think it's me because clearly my internet has been acting up. But quickly, if we could move on to you, Ahmed. Could you speak about so I want to understand. So we've heard from Sumaya, we've heard what you do in terms of supporting Sumaya and the RLCC, and obviously as well as Kudus and the experience in Kenya, in Ethiopia. But if you could speak about what the skill set that you think young people would need, particularly because I know, because you're also trying to use technology, you're trying to partner with different organizations, some that are not so, for instance, don't need technological interventions as much, but if you could speak about the skill set young people would perhaps need, and do you think universities are prepared for this?
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. And like, there's another question that's asking me about challenges while collecting waste from restaurants in the food sector, like, and everything, etc. As well. I'll tackle that as well. Okay. So part of the reason why we started working with RLCC is to provide a 360-degree solution, right? Like a 360-degree waste management solution that helps us, of course, market our business better as well. It's like, when you take off like all the rest of the layers, it's as simple as that. Like, it's economics as well, it's marketability and so on and so forth as well. But there are other challenges too, and one of them, of course, is the skill set. As Kidus, like, if I'm pronouncing that like properly, I apologize if I pronounce that wrong. As mentioned, that to at least to start the waste management business, it doesn't require that many years in college, I guess. It requires very soft business skills too. And that could range from just like having a paper and a pen, handy, and just writing down the records as to how much plastic we received from which organization, and how much plastic we sold at what rate, and so on. And it's basic like arithmetic, and then of course keeping track of the clients that we've serviced that day, like if somebody's been missed, so that we can go and collect waste from them like the following day or in the evening, and so on. But we're also trying to work with organizations and or universities, and trying to show people, because one of the issues that Pakistan faces as far as the waste management industry is concerned, that people think that it's an unclean job, that people don't really think that waste management is a cool job, or so on. And honestly, that's what I thought as well, before I actually ended up entering the waste management industry. It helped that I had like experience working with nuclear waste a little bit as well. Like I've worked at a nuclear reactor, so I've had to sort through nuclear waste and everything as well. So that was pretty cool. But this is a much more difficult job, because you have to work with so many consumers. So with the purpose of including the digital aspect or apps and everything, part of it is to make it, I guess, cooler for new. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's marketability as well. It's not just to for our client, but it's also so that we could get universities like and graduates, etc., to look at the waste management industry as a job that they could enter as well properly. So and that's why we've also included waste audits. Waste audits, of course, it's great for organizations to receive those waste audits. Like, so for example, we just recently gave just today we gave a waste audit to this shipping company that last month they had used about 30 kgs of plastic across a couple of weeks. This month they had used about 11 kgs, because we were able to give them that perspective. So on the client end, they look at that, but on the other end, it gives university students or graduates something to look forward to as well, or something like that, something that they can employ their skills towards too. So and the other thing is to bring the informal sector into the formal sector as well. And I'll mention the challenges that we face while collecting waste from restaurants and food sector like during this time. One of the challenges we face is that is a lot of resistance from the informal sector because and as I mentioned, sorry, you had a question.
No, I had a question. I mean, I'm sure you're going to tell us because I'm interested. The informal sector, in you talked about the kabada culture, which is very true. That is the informal sector, isn't it? So I'm surprised.
Right.
Is it because they feel like you're encroaching on their domain?
Yes, because as I mentioned, much of the informal sector is comprised of refugees from various countries, and unfortunately, Pakistan hasn't been able to give them proper status. So they cannot register companies, they cannot be employed into the mainstream. They of course utilize a lot of child labor, and they're not a part of any rules regulations. They don't have any safety nets. So once the what's it called we try to bring them into the mainstream, into the formal sector, it becomes very difficult for them to enter it. So and if we start going to these restaurants or clients or the food sector or markets, then of course it's almost encroaching upon their territory, and then of course they give us some resistance because waste on the streets is one of the things that they can pick up without there being any because especially in Pakistan, it's not the rules and regulations are not implemented properly.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is to work with them and to create policy as well, and work with the government too, so that they can be so that the informal sector can be hired into the formal sector as well, and we could provide proper safety nets to them. So again, that of course, if we're able to do that, that will employ more people, and that will lead to better countering of the climate issue.
No, actually, that's a brilliant point as well, where we know that probably 60-70% of Pakistan's economy is in the informal sector. This is actually one way of at least addressing one of those problems. Again, we notice all the solutions that all of you offer, and I hope that I think Dr. Dinesh, his internet has been acting up, but I think Nazish is left. If Shahadat, if you're still with us, because I did have one more question before we close as well. So I think what you guys have taught me and are telling me right now, that the impact across is manifold, right? It isn't just saving the planet. These are immediate issues. For instance, formalizing the informal sector. For instance, teaching new skills. For instance, so that it just helps across the board. It's very holistic, whichever way you look at it. Shahadat, I would sort of, if you could talk about, because there's a lot of companies that are actually opening up more green jobs, and you've talked about it. Nazish talked about it. She's not with us, but if you could speak specifically which sectors you think need to be prioritized.
Yeah, thanks for coming back to me. Basically, at that opening session, I gave a kind of overview from that American investors and AmCham members' point of view. But the fact is that green job, green skills, environmental friendly initiatives, upskilling, reskilling, this COVID arena, and even in the global political turmoil, we all are trying to figure out how we can survive. The inflation is going high, the market is acting up, even the rising economies are facing difficulties. But traditionally, Bangladesh, you saw that at the end of the day, we all talk about sustainability. We all talk about that economically feasible way out, and that is happening in Bangladesh. And we talked about it earlier, and the way we make those qualitative assessments, we try to figure out in a quantitative way what are the future generation investment priorities. And interestingly, we find that we really found out, and based on data, that was a data-driven approach to see where next U.S. investments, where next generation's investments might come into Bangladesh. And we found out one is fintech, another is agro processing, another one is that is agro processing that I've said, fintech, and the third one was blue economy. Apart from the ready-made garments, that is our main bread and butter when it comes about export of Bangladesh. But when we thought about foreign direct investment from USA and the priorities from the local industries, we have found out these are the places where next generation investments can come in. And fortunately, women entrepreneurship is booming up. Our ready-made garments, there 80% of our workers are coming from those, women. And fortunately, as well as last 3 terms, we are having the same prime minister as well as earlier prime minister. They all are women. So, women entrepreneurship, women empowerment, women emancipation. These are not only the buzzwords; these are the words that we really count on. And the initiatives, the way I said, the research that we ran with an ex-IFC guy, and we not only saw that from the empirical data collection, from practical point of view, these are the places where next generation investments can come in, and we are serious about it. And to get out of the middle income status and the way Bangladesh is going forward by 2041, getting out of this, already Bangladesh got out of this LDC countries, and they have already achieved this middle income status. So already also there, Bangladesh is also has done pretty well in MDG, goal activities. Now we are thinking about SDGs, and I believe if situation goes well, and if we don't have any further global turmoil or anything the way we are facing right now, the situation might help us get into the trajectory where we can see more investment, more focus, and the priorities into more greener economy, at least from AmCham members and American investors point of view. Back
All
to
right.
you, Pam.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me and my internet is still working. But I think at the close of this, I would like to go back to Dr. Dinesh. There's a lot of questions, of course, and I'd really like to keep the conversation going, but we're nearly up on 2 hours, and I think let's talk about these new jobs. Dr. Dinesh, my question for you was, you spoke about these new jobs and sustainability and compliance. We also heard about how risk is actually something that is being built into a lot of companies as well. Could you speak about these new jobs and whether universities and colleges are equipped to teach those, whether it is even as just a diploma?
Thank you. Thank you, Amber, for the question. Well, of course, these days we have courses on sustainability both at graduate level as well as undergrad level. For instance, even in Nepal, at least in 2 universities, I'm teaching the sustainability science. And also many of the renowned world-class universities like Columbia, they also have courses on sustainability. But my emphasis was not on such academic courses, because these academic courses will bring you some theories. That's good for it. It will bring some research outwards. That's good for it. But the importance is the green skill, which I mentioned and which I categorically emphasize, that green skills is not only the knowledge that you get from the school or from the universities. As I mentioned, it composes at least 3 dimensions. That is to be emphasized. The 3 dimensions are, as I mentioned, one is knowledge, which we call cognitive dimension, that you learn from your teacher, that you learn from the courses that we mentioned here. The second is the skills and abilities, which is also known as psychomotor dimension. And the third is most importantly, that is attitude, the values, which we call the affective dimension. So what I mean to say is, for the sustainability course, It should not be limited to sustainability course, but this kind of course should be integrated in all kinds of courses. For example, like the economics, management, engineering, wherever. So that is the important. That we have to think. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions. There are many more, and while you can't see them, but our comment box is also full. But I have to end this here. We're coming up on 2 hours. Huge thanks to Nazish, who left us as well before, but I had more questions, but she had to leave at 4, unfortunately, before we could get back to her with more questions. A huge thanks to you as well, Kidus, because this has been fascinating. I recall when I first became a journalist and worked in Karachi, there was a lady who used to turn garbage into bricks, but I think the idea is to turn it into something more, not just buildings and bricks, but schools and houses and homes that people would want to live in. And it's been fascinating hearing from you, Dr. Dinesh, very informative. You gave us both a global and a local perspective. Shahadat's, Bangladesh has been at the forefront of industry and women empowerment and skills, and it's really showed the way in the region as well. And it's great to know how Bangladesh is also developing sustainable skills as well. And what the opportunities are, because those opportunities are similar to the opportunities in Pakistan. And obviously, my Pakistani guests as well, Ahmed and Sumaya. I love the fact that you're collaborating. I love the fact that the impact that you're creating isn't just on some vague notion of climate change in the future, perhaps, but in people's real lives. And that's the whole idea behind a post-carbon world and green jobs. It isn't just about employment opportunities, but the fact that this post-carbon world where fossil fuels will hopefully be eliminated, where young people who care so deeply about the environment will be able to pursue both, which is employment as well as trying to change the future through these green jobs. A huge thank you to Tabadlab and everybody who participated. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.